Call this meeting to order. Will you please call the roll, Ms. Lane?
Arthur Burns,
Here.
Robin Hanger,
Here.
Dennis Smith,
Here.
Tony Casada,
Here.
Michael Meyer.
Here. Please join me in the invocation. Lord, we thank you for this day and for this time and place. We thank you that we have the opportunity to come here to do, with your guidance, the best for the city of Holly Hill, and we pray that with that we do that tonight. In your holy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item of business is to elect a chairman. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Mike Myers to continue if he would take it.
I am honored, and thank you.
And at the same time, though, I would like to have some discussion afterwards, if it's accepted.
Okay.
Second. Oh,
All right, all right, that's two. Are there any other nominations? All right,
Vice.
yeah, well,
it's two
let's have a
different
vote.
items.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, I win.
What?
Last time I said no, I think. But, all right, we need to elect a vice chairman. Do we have any nominations? Well,
I'd
hearing,
like to put Robin up for it.
okay,
I think it's time that Robin steps up and learns, which we all learn how it's run and what's happening sitting here in our seats. But I would like to put Robin Hanger's name in the bucket.
I'll second it.
Do you accept?
I do.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Robin. Hold on.
I'm going to be taking notes. I need to learn.
All right, so now we'll get into our regular agenda. Do you want to have your discussion now, or you want to have it after the,
I'll do it now.
okay?
I would just like us to, as a board up here, to work on being a little bit more understanding and professional to staff and also to participants, the citizens that come here. We are their first point of contact when they are trying to get something approved. And they're like, I'll say they're like me. You know, they're unbeknownst to a lot of the rules and regulations. I mean, I probably know a little bit, and all of us up here know a little bit more than some, but not a whole lot. And so they're here asking for things to better our city, in their opinion. And I think that we need to not be so short to cut people off when they're out of time, and not so short when maybe they're out of line a little bit of talking. We could do it a little bit nicer. And I've watched the commission, how they handle it, and I just think that we have been in the past gotten away from it, and I think we should work on that a little bit better.
Okay, sounds like that's okay.
Are we in a discussion phase, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, go ahead, Mr. Burns.
It sounds like a shot at the chairman, but
How I felt about
he
it.
does,
Well, I apologize for that. That wasn't meant to anyone particular at all.
it's, it is a tough thing because we're supposed to sort of follow Robert's rules, and we need to make sure, well, and maybe we don't, but in my opinion, you know, we need to try and keep the discussion on things that we can actually do something about. You know, people come here and talk about the school board. I mean, I'm making it up, but come and talk about, hey, we need better schools. Well, nothing that we do here will make a difference on that. So we need to make sure that we're we're focused on what we can help them with, but I agree that this might not be the place to have hard and fast time limits when people need to talk about something. If they're staying on topic, then they should be allowed to continue. But that's merely my opinion.
And I agree with that, staying on topic is huge. We have rules that when we're deciding on anything, we have guidelines, we're not freelancing up here. There's things that we have, that if you come for a variance and you have to meet certain requirements, if you don't meet those requirements, then it's incumbent upon us to tell you, no, that you can't have the variance. We don't have a choice about that. That's not debatable. But the other aspect of it is that this is a Holly Hill board. This is a board for the citizens of Holly Hill. And and our job is to, and I hope that I am never impolite to anyone. I know one night I had a little meltdown with Brian some time ago, but he and I both got over that. And so I hope that I'm never rude, but I am going to keep you on topic. And if you're not on topic, I'm going to tell you, okay, well, please come back to topic. And if you can't come back to topic, I'm going to tell you your time is up.
That's fair.
That's my job. That's
Fair
my
enough.
job, to keep this thing moving.
Fair enough.
So, and that's what I will try to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we got next on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from November the 2nd. Do I have any, are there any additions, deletions, corrections that we need to make?
I suggest we approve.
Okay, motion to approve. Do I have a
Motion to approve.
second?
I'll second him.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Nope. Call the question, please. All right, never mind. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Sorry, Lanny. Didn't need to throw you a curveball. All right. Mr. Walker, will you tell us about this first item on the agenda?
Yes, Chairman. This is to consider an ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from UMI, which is urban medium intensity, to MDR, medium density residential, and a rezone from R5, which is urban single-family residential, to R6, low-density multifamily residential. And this is for a property that is known as 1088 10th Street, and it's approximately 9.4 acres that are involved. The petitioner did request that their property be annexed into the city of Holly Hill, and the City Commission did vote on November 10th, 2020, unanimously to annex the property into the city. However, this was at first reading. So it is anticipated that second reading and final reading will be the second meeting, or actually the fourth meeting, fourth Tuesday of the month. So at that particular time, it's anticipated that the property would be annexed into the city. That being the case, the applicant would be required to take on the future land use, a future land use that is associated with the city of Holly Hill. Right now, it has urban medium intensity, which is actually Volusia County's future land use. So they would be going from that to medium density residential in the city of Holly Hill. And also right now, they are zoned R5 in Volusia County, and they would need to rezone to R6, which is a city of Holly Hill zoning designation. There's a lot of information in the staff report. The project information, I'll just refer to the staff report. The information is there, and then if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions. There's also a zoning and land use table, a zoning and impact table that is part of the staff report, and we can also talk about that if you'd like to go into that. There's a site analysis that talks about the site. Again, I won't go into every detail, but if there's something you'd like to talk about further, we can. One of the things that we are required to do, according to Florida statute, Section 163.31776A9B, we are to look at plan amendments and make sure that they do not encourage the proliferation of urban sprawl. And so that was done, and this amendment does not represent any leapfrog development or premature development that would be characterized as urban sprawl. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan, there are various policies that we have looked at. For example, policy 1.12, policy 1.15, policy 1.217. The policies with regard to the comprehensive plan have been listed, and they've been addressed in the staff report as well. And staff does find that the requested small-scale future land use amendment is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. With regard to the zoning category that is requested, we looked at it for appropriateness. If you look on the north and west of the property, it's R5 zoning. And the stated purpose of that zoning classification is to provide medium-density residential developments. On the south is MH5, which is intended to provide medium-density areas for mobile home subdivisions. And on the east are R7 and commercial designations. And the R7 classification is stated that it provides for multifamily residential living, where high-density residential developments exist or are proposed.
Question? May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? The words mobile home hit my ear. That's not going to be allowed in the Holly Hill zoning.
No, this is a zoning that is surrounding the property, so it actually exists within Volusia County.
I don't want to see any more mobile homes in this area. It just is not fair.
Not time for editorial comment, though.
Sorry. One more question. Can you give us an idea when you say medium density about how many residences would
For the city of Holly Hill, medium density is more than 6 and under 20. So it's a span. Low density would be considered basically 6 and under. High density would be 20 and over.
Thank you.
Continue. The R6 zoning district, which is what is proposed for this property, permits multifamily development. However, it does restrict the development on the site to 12 dwelling units per net buildable acre. So although it is more dense than what's currently permitted on the property, the density is compatible with the surrounding residential zoning categories that all have medium or high density developed as part of their stated purpose. So the R6 zoning category is considered also compatible with the medium density residential future land use designation. So just one of the things that I'll point out for clarity is when you have, we're asking now for a future land use map amendment, which comes from the comprehensive plan, which is one guiding document, and then we have the zoning that is asked for as being R6. And that comes out of our land development regulations. When you look at the future land use designation or the comprehensive plan map amendment, and it says that it allows a density of up to 19 dwelling units an acre, that is true. However, the zoning in this case, which is what they're asking for, restricts them to a maximum of 12 dwelling units an acre. So they're restricted to 12 dwelling units per acre, or actually per net buildable acre. There's a difference, because when you're looking at net buildable, you're looking at the property, you pull out wetlands, you pull out any flood prone, you pull out any right-of-way, and then what you're left with is what's buildable. So for the city of Holly Hill, they are able to do up to 12 dwelling units per net buildable, whereas within Volusia County, it's just a straight across the board 8 dwelling units per acre. So it actually ends up, they could end up doing even less once we have pulled out their wetlands, which they have at least 2 acres of wetlands on this property. So it's just something to keep in mind when folks look at it and they say, wow, 19 dwelling units an acre, that's a lot. The zoning restricts it to a maximum of 12, and that's a net buildable figure. So I just wanted to make that clear. Based on this information, staff recommends adoption of the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from UMI, urban medium intensity in Volusia County, to medium density residential in Holly Hill, and a rezone from R5, urban single-family residential in Volusia County, to R6, low-density multifamily residential in the city of Holly Hill for approximately 9.4 acres. And this is located on the northeast corner of the intersection of 10th and Vine Streets, and more specifically known as 1088 10th Street. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Chairman, if I could just make a couple comments real quick?
Yes, please.
This is a situation, you've probably heard me talk before, that sometimes y'all sit as a quasi-judicial body, and then sometimes you sit as a policy-making body. In this particular situation, you are sitting in both scenarios. Your comprehensive plan amendment, that is a policy document, and what's important about that is you have a lot of discretion in establishing a policy. The city and the planning board and then the city commission has a lot of discretion in establishing policy. Courts grant substantial deference to decisions that are made regarding policy, and they won't overturn them unless there's a clear abuse of discretion. That's a pretty tough standard to overcome. However, when you get into your rezoning request, that's not policy setting anymore. Now you are implementing policy, and that's quasi-judicial. Your decisions in a zoning matter have to be supported by substantial competent evidence. You don't have the deference anymore that was once that is granted to a policy decision, because when you rezone property, you're not creating policy anymore. I tell you all this in that when you hear all the evidence and you hear everything, one, you probably ought to vote on them separately, because there are two different standards of review for those. So I would vote on the comprehensive plan amendment, then I would vote on the zoning document. If you have hesitation about the project at all, my advice would be say no to the land use, because you have a lot of discretion. The city would actually have a lot of discretion in denying land use, whereas if you approve the land use and then you try to deny the zoning, you got to have substantial competent evidence to deny zoning. Now, if you approve both, that becomes less relevant. You still need substantial competent evidence to support the recommendation to approve the zoning, but it's the denial that's more concerning. But if you do have concerns with it, my recommendation would be don't approve the land use, nor the zoning, obviously, but you would deny the land use. We have far greater discretion in denying land use as it is a policy decision.
If we deny the land use, didn't we create the ability to deny the zoning?
Actually, if you deny the land use, the zoning dies naturally.
Okay.
Because all zoning has to be consistent with your comp plan. So
Right.
the only way that zoning becomes consistent with our comp plan is we have to put the land use,
Right.
amend the comp plan and put the land use in there to make it so they can make that request. And that's where it gets difficult to just say yes to the comp plan but no to the zoning, because we're putting land use on there that makes their zoning requests consistent.
Right.
So once we make it consistent, then how are you going to say no? So it gets a little harder,
Yeah.
because you need substantial competent evidence to say no. So you say no to the land use. So then the zoning can't occur. Now, as Brian pointed out, they would still be under the county's land use and zoning and development standards. And so that it's not that they can't do anything. They can do what the county says.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Because, Mr. Walker, didn't I hear you say that the county standards are broader, that they could put more units there than under the city land use?
No. The city, under Holly Hill, with the zoning, and I'm talking about the zoning.
No, I'm talking
not
about
the
land
comp.
use.
Right, I'm gonna address both. With the R6, they're allowed 12 dwelling units per net buildable acre. Okay? Under the county, which is R5, they're allowed, with their land use, they're allowed 8 dwelling units per acre. So when you look at the city, we look at the 9.4 acres, and it's net buildable. So we say, okay, how much of this is wetlands? We pull that out. So let's say for the sake of argument, we're talking, take a clean number, 10 acres. 3 acres, let's say, are wetlands. Now we're down to 7. And we have now an acre of flood prone. Pull that now, we're down to 6. And let's say we have easements and utility transmission or that type of thing right of way, and that's another acre. Now we pull that out. Now we're down to 5 buildable acres. So if they're allowed, 12 for those 5, that's a total of 60. Whereas with the county, under their system, it's 8 dwelling units, an acre, period. So they would take their 10 acres, we're allowed 8, they could get 80 units on there.
Yeah, and that's what my brain was saying, is that under the city rules, there'll be less people likely there than under the county.
It's possible, once they come in, and, I mean, right now, they have submitted a survey that shows approximately 2.5
I thought it was about
acres.
2 3/4.
It's, yeah, somewhere around there, of wetlands.
Yeah,
So that's what they would have to,
all right.
they would have to do.
Starting spot, then you gotta take the roads out and,
Then
all
we
the
gotta
other
take the
things.
roads, whatever road they're putting in there, or
Exactly.
cul-de-sac
Yeah.
they're putting in there, that's subtracted.
So with this zoning and these numbers, and we're probably looking at a pretty close, very similar number between the county and what the city would allow there. But as Brian pointed out, was to your question, the land use it has a category. You can 6 and less than 20, right?
Yes.
6 and less than 20. So if they came back in a year and decided, well, we need more density, so we want to change the zoning after we've changed the land use, we put them in the medium density. They come back in a year and say, hey, we want to change the zoning, but then they'd have to go through the whole process all over again. So it's not a rubber stamp. What they're asking for tonight is the land use change and the R6 zoning district. So that's basically what our task before us tonight is, as I understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Correct. All right. All right, was there someone out here who would like to speak against this? All right, please come up, tell us who you are, where you live. I think there's a microphone there, but I now have bionic ears, so I can hear really well.
My name is Rick Burdette. I live at 10th and David, or Old Kings and David. Since I've been there, on the corner of where you guys want to build, there's been 4 shootings in the last 4 years. You guys can look it up. I was talking to a sheriff's deputy. I do air conditioning, so I got a lot of friends that are sheriff's deputies. And one was parked by my house. The car doing about 90 miles an hour comes down Old Kings Road. He can't do nothing about it. All he can do is hit the lights. They can't chase. I mean, you put these houses in there, it's going to be low income. You know it. And it's just going to make it worse. There's no cops. There's drug deals, 4 drug deals today and yesterday right by my house. And there ain't nothing they can do about it. Oh, get the tag number, get this, get that, get this. It's just going to make it worse.
Okay. But you understand that if the county already has a zoning on that property, that would allow them to do the same thing, or maybe more. So we're not making anything worse that I see, that I can see, and I understand that.
Adding more
But then
houses, of
also,
course
you're
it's gonna
talking
make it
about
worse.
the sheriffs, then we'll have city police jurisdiction, so you'll have sheriffs there and you'll have city police there. So you've increased the law enforcement potential in the area. Maybe it makes things better.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask Mr. Walker a question about a statement. Do we have any reason to believe that this is going to be low-income housing?
No, I haven't heard anything.
There's no applications for any grants or loans for the low income like we've had in other, like
And other
Charleston Place and
Right.
such?
Yeah,
Okay.
typically
I just-
when people are doing that, they come in, they're preparing to get some type of financing
Right.
from the Florida State Financing Corporation. They start the grant process, and we usually will get paperwork in advance or even at this stage. We haven't gotten anything, so we have nothing, no reason to believe that it's going to be low income.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not necessarily against, but question.
Well, that was my next part. Okay. Well, come up. I was going to ask who would like to speak for it, since if there's no one else against. But you have a question, so please come up and ask it.
Okay.
Tell us who you are and where you're from.
If I take my mask off?
Yes, ma'am, it's okay with me.
Great. Hi, you guys. Happy New Year, everybody. Lynn Stark McDonald. I reside at 104 Palm Terrace. My property backs up to the north side of 1088. Question I have, I think you answered part of it, Brian. I emailed you today, but I know it was short notice. So the R5 urban single-family residential, that is the county's designation currently, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fine. And they want to, they're asking for an R6.
Yes.
Okay. So R5 is higher density in the city of Holly Hill?
Well, actually, what determines the density is the future land use. So the city of Holly Hill, they're asking for a future land use that does allow a greater density. The zoning that they're asking for, however, is restricting what they can do to 12 dwelling units per net buildable acre. The future land use in Volusia County allows 8 dwelling units
Right.
per acre. So right now, if you look at what they're allowed per acre versus what you're allowed per net buildable acre, it could be that although the stated density, when you look at it on paper, is more in terms of the city's proposed future land use, when you take out for the wetlands and those type of things, you could end up with less housing.
Right. No, I think you were bang on your figures, because it's 2.733 acres of wetlands, and then I came to about the same conclusion. It's maybe 5 or 6.
Right.
I wasn't counting in the roads and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
In that R6 designation, is there any kind of a height requirement, or does that come later in this whole process?
It's 30 feet,
30 feet.
30 feet.
Could you make that, what's the equivalent of that per stories?
It's about 10, a story is about 10 feet. So you're looking at about
3 stories?
3 stories.
Okay. And so, are you familiar with Grand Hickory, where that is? It's off 10th, it's east of Nova.
Is that in the
that?
county?
No, it's in the city.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that is, I think it's hard to determine between the dark green on the zoning map, the dark green, and then the darker aqua color.
Okay.
So I think that Grand Hickory is an example of an R5. Does anybody know? No?
I think Grand Hickory is R6.
It is. Okay, and then
I
the one
believe.
across from it, the Palms Apartments, that are the little 2-story.
I'd have to look at the property specifically on our map, which I don't have in front of me. So this is a guess. Okay? Both of those, I believe, are more of a multifamily if they're in the greens. Our greens are multifamily. The density would be determined by the future land use on them, and I'm going to guess that it's a medium density. Again,
Okay.
I'm guessing here because I don't have the maps in front of me.
Okay. And the other question I have is, does an R5 or R6, that has nothing to do, does that dictate the well, that they'd have to have wells versus, or is it already
No.
determined if they get annexed in, they're going to have Daytona water?
Daytona is able to service them for water. However, we are able to service them for water as well. We would probably be the ones to service them for sewer, and we would make them connect. They can't develop something like this and have it be septic.
Okay.
So yes, they would be required to connect.
Regardless of its R5
Regardless,
or 6 or
right, to
whatever.
develop, they're gonna have to do that. I think currently, there's one house on the property.
Yes.
I believe that it's on septic at this point. If they came and said, we want to do one house,
Different story.
yeah, that's a different story, but
Yeah. Okay, and then, Mr. Simpson, I had a question for you. I'm sorry, I'm a neophyte at this, but what does that mean when you're saying, say no to the land use? I mean,
Well, they're making two requests. One is to amend the comprehensive plan. When we annex property from the county, unincorporated area into the city, it still has the county's land use and zoning until we incorporate that into the city's land use and zoning.
Okay.
So we have to incorporate it in. And so they have to make two requests. One is land use and one is zoning. Land use is a policy decision. That's the comprehensive plan. All the courts have unanimously said that's a policy decision, and it's the separation of powers in our government. You know, the judicial branch doesn't step on the toes of the legislative branch in terms of policy decisions. Same thing here. A comprehensive plan amendment, the decision of what land use to put on there is a policy decision. And the courts, it's very difficult to get the courts to overturn policy decisions. But once the commission makes a decision to put a particular policy, a land use decision per policy on that property, how that policy decision gets implemented is now through our land development regulations, which is the zoning and the land development code. Well, the courts have said that's not policy decisions anymore. Drafting the land development regulations, creating the land development regulation, that is policy. Applying the regulations to an applicant is more judicial. That's why it's called quasi-judicial, so we're held to different standards, which require the decision now to be supported by evidence, as opposed to not abusing your discretion type standard, which is very liberal. It's more of, okay, you made this decision, what evidence supports it? And so that's tougher to uphold. So a decision to say, well, we're going to let the land use go forward, but we don't like their zoning request, is tougher to defend, because the question is, what substantial competent evidence do you have to say no to the zoning?
right.
Whereas if you say, we don't like this land use, the question is, did the city abuse its discretion in saying no to the land use? That's a very deferential standard back to the city. So that's where I'm saying if the ultimate end here is that this project doesn't get approved, deny it based on grounds that are very easy to defend as opposed to grounds that are harder to defend.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
That makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clearer.
Okay.
Clearer. So and it's kind of weird, like doing this. It almost seems like the cart's before the horse. I know this is how it works, but it seems like, you know, for us that are here with concerns about it, I know all this stuff has to happen, but like if we had some idea of what they were going to do, you know, like this gentleman has concerns about, I don't want it to be low income housing either, because that's going to make my property value go in the dumper.
Well, there's different kinds of zonings, and what you may have seen in the past, with the reason is one of the reasons that it exists is called a planned unit development zoning, and in that particular zoning, the applicant comes forward with a site plan, a preliminary site plan, a development agreement that kind of outlines this is what we're going to build, and so, and it's usually done to negotiate because. Under what's called, you can call it conventional zoning, straight zoning, but this particular zoning, like they're asking for, is in our code, and it basically says, okay, in this zoning, these are the uses that are allowed. This is the setback, this is the density, this is the buffer, all the regulations. It creates a buildable envelope, and as long as you comply with that envelope, you can build. You got to do those uses. Anything that's within that permissible envelope, you can do. Whereas a planned unit development is a negotiated zoning, so the envelope changes. We negotiate the envelope.
Like you said before, nobody's put in for any.
Right. Well,
I guess you
that's a
would ask
totally
for
different issue.
state
That's a
assistance.
financing aspect of it. Whether or not they could qualify, there's all kind of regulations that get into that. But Here, what cities regulate is we regulate the use, the density. So we're good with residential and we're good with this density. That's what we get to regulate. And that's basically what we have before us tonight, what they've asked for. So,
So is
it's
it logical to make the assumption that, let's say that you guys vote for, and I know I'm getting close to my time, that if you guys vote to say, yes, you recommend an R6, is it safe to say then it won't be a low-income housing project?
there's different criteria for the low-income housing. That's
But when does that come into play?
It may have already, typically it would have already come into play.
Okay,
But you were at the very beginning of this project. It could come up later, but typically, your low-income housing projects, the ones I've seen anyway, require a city match. And now you're getting into policy decisions where the city can say, we ain't budgeting any money for this.
Okay.
So we're not matching anything.
okay.
So, now, do they get to set the price point, whether it's rental or whether it's ownership, yeah, they get to set it.
Okay.
Now, everybody's gonna set it as high as the market will bear, so
Sure.
the only reason people do low-income housing is they get subsidized by the
Right.
government to keep the prices lower. That's the only reason they do it. Otherwise, they're gonna charge what the market will bear, just like anybody else would do. But there is, from what Brian has said, and I have not seen any application, there is no application pending that we're aware of for this to be anything other than a normal, residential project.
Okay.
So, now, could there be something we don't know about? Sure, there could be.
Scary.
But there's nothing we can do about it.
I know.
The point is that we
See-
regulate density. We don't get to say,
Okay. So would
Oh.
that be a city commission thing then?
no, city commission can't do that either. At this point, the city commission can say, we don't budget the money.
I mean, do you understand the fear that I think this gentleman expressed that,
Yeah,
we're
but-
going through all this and then, it's just like mine, like, oh, somebody's gonna
In
a minute.
pull something and say,
Yeah,
oh, it's gonna, guess what, it's gonna be projects. No offense, but,
Here's the tough thing. Like I said, we can say, we want this type of density, we're allowing this type of zoning, this type of density. But when we get into say, but you gotta have a certain income level to live there, we don't want poor people there.
no, I get that.
Well, that's.
That's what you're saying.
That's what you're saying.
That is what
And
you're saying.
that's where we run into problems with the federal government.
No, okay,
So-
then I'm using the incorrect verbiage. Again, I'm not good at this, but I'm just saying, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said projects or whatever, but it's not necessarily that. I'm saying, can that happen? I mean, I think the R6 thing is fine. I'd rather have that than the county thing because it's a net buildable acre, like you said, Brian, and I know they're probably only gonna net out 5, maybe
I don't
6.
know enough about how all that, what qualifies and what they look for to qualify for a project for a particular funding. But what you're talking about is the financing side of it. That's the financing side of the project. And we don't get involved in that unless if they're gonna do, some type of a Section 8 or tax subsidized, they have to come to us for matching funds. And so
Okay.
we can say, no, we're not putting any money into this, and presumably that effectively kills it because the state government wants to see local support, a match. And so, and those things are not easily, they have a lottery system they go through. It's very hard to get it, and they only grant so many statewide anyway. So it's not automatic. Now, could they, like I said, I don't know why they would, but could they decide, well, we're gonna just keep our rates lower so we can keep our apartments full? Yeah, we don't do rent control.
I get that,
Yeah,
but
so-
they're gonna be putting a lot of money into it.
Oh, they are, and that's what I'm saying is the
You know,
likelihood
I mean,
that somebody's
hooking
gonna
up to
wanna.
the Water
yeah.
and all that, so,
And when you finish, ma'am, this fellow that's behind you, he's going to speak to a lot of your concerns.
Yeah, exactly.
swell.
Yeah, so, and the law
I was
enforcement.
gonna say, okay.
Yeah, the law
I'm done.
enforcement part of it, I understand that, but you have that no matter what goes there.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I mean, in the speeding, you have that no matter what goes there. We can't tell somebody you can't develop your property unless we want to buy it.
I get that.
We buy the property if you do that. So we can't do that. And so there's other controls the city puts in place, whether through its the law enforcement mainly and code enforcement to control how the people operate or engage in the use that we're allowing. And that's how we enforce the rules. But, we can't say, unless, we do traffic studies to make sure that the road has the capacity for that, for the additional project that comes on there. They have to show that. But we
And
can't
they're all
say-
in here.
We think what's that?
I said, and they're all in here.
Yeah. So,
And
but,
what he's
Board
gonna talk
studies,
about?
too.
yeah.
In this
So, but it's hard for us to say, people speed on this road, so we're just not going to approve any more development. Can't do that. That's not, if the road has the capacity, then we need to find, and there's a speeding problem, the solution is through law enforcement, not through a building moratorium.
Yeah,
So that's how we'll address that.
okay.
Okay,
Fair
thank you
enough.
so
Done.
much.
Yep.
All right, I think you're up.
Maybe he can answer more questions about
I
the,
think I was a little too eager. Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. And I just want to briefly touch on some things I heard tonight and also answer any questions. Density is a huge issue, and I could see the discussion going back and forth with the citizens, and that's really sensitive. And, part of what I want to highlight, too, is that there's another prong to this, which I think Scott alluded to, is that there's a policy issue going on here where Holly Hill has a choice to make. How do you grow? How do you do what's best for your citizens? And a lot of that sometimes takes investment from somebody out there that wants to say, I want to do this investment and I want to put the money in to put the infrastructure in, and at the end of the day you have something that looks real nice and everybody can be proud of. The problem you have with this property is it's in the county, it's R5, and if you ask a developer to say, look, based on cutting this up into single-family homes and calling it a day, I don't have much flexibility, and developers go where they're wanted. And Holly Hill is a good partner that this makes a lot of sense to be in the city of Holly Hill, moving westerly from Nova, and the synergy that you can envision going on here with as things are moving west, and you can already see it. And I don't necessarily want to become Daytona, where LPGA has become a nightmare, but but there's a reasonable means to achieve what you can get, something that everybody can be proud of here. And that's kind of the balancing act that we got going on, where we're coming in trying to get something that's that the middle of the road, where we're coming in under the urban medium to the Holly Hills medium density, but we don't want to take advantage of 20 units per acre. That 12 units per acre is just fine at a net acreage. But you get more flexibility for where do you end up there? We've had discussions with folks about townhomes with ALFs. It's just they're excited, but who's going to put their money forward unless they see that, okay, there's a commitment on the other side to say, okay, yes, we can make this happen. And I can tell you right now, there's no plans to make this low-income housing. I'll go on the record and say that. So, we're not working on an application. There will be none submitted. So, that to clarify that, and I can understand how that can be scary, just from as a neighbor, that it's you don't know what's going on. Somebody like me who works in this day to day, you get that a lot, because this is probably a very one or few experiences in a lifetime with a neighbor with seeing rezonings. The other part too, I think I was mentioned, was the crime part, and I think the chair hit it on the head, where you tend to see less crime when you see investment, and if you commit to putting the money there, that means there's tax dollars for the city. That means there's more officers patrolling, and then, a rising tide lifts all ships here, where you have there's a synergistic effect. And the same is true with utilities. Those are economies of scale. The more people you have connected, the less it is for everyone. So, that's really the highlights of what I wanted to hit. And if there's any specific questions, I'm happy to answer. And in a perfect world, I would love to have a development here before you and say, this is what we want to do. It's just getting that partner to come forward and say, I want to put that money into Holly Hill and make this commitment. It's just a little too premature to have that discussion, because, we know where we want to go. We just got to get people excited to get there. So.
Questions? All right. Looks like you're off the hook.
Oh, good. Cool.
Good job. All right. You all have any questions for anybody else? You have Brian? All right. Then to
It could be assisted
No.
The, we're done. We're going to take this in two votes, as Scott said.
Chairman.
The lady in the back wants to speak in the black.
Well,
Kind of like up and down, up and down.
well, she didn't put her hand up when I was looking before.
So the gentleman was saying there's going
Let's
to
tell me, tell us who you are, please.
I'm
And
sorry.
where you
Catherine
live.
Duncan, 1196 10th Street.
Okay,
I was concerned about police, an increase of police that we need in the area, and the traffic, the gentleman the same. I had the same concern, because they don't even stop. They glide, you can hear them actually gliding. Like going so fast, it sounds like they're like airborne on 10th Street. And I want my property to increase, not to decrease.
yes, ma'am.
So, and he answered that question for me.
Okay, Doug.
You know, but the police is very important to me.
Right. Well, if they,
We have an
if they're annexed into the city, then there'll be more law enforcement.
Okay.
Because you have the county right there, so you'll have sheriffs there. Then you'll have our Holyoke police will have jurisdiction, so they'll be patrolling. So it can only get better, not worse.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And I'm sorry I didn't see you raise your hand.
That's all right, thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I didn't fully hear this young lady's question about, she asked if something would be allowed.
If it could be an ALF.
She asked if there was
Yeah.
an ALF.
I'll be happy to answer that.
Please answer that, because
Yeah. Based on the straight zoning of R6, no. R6 allows, and these are the listed uses, single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, city-owned parks and open space, or essential utility uses and structures. You know, power poles, transmission lines, things like that. Now, in order to do anything outside of that, let's say they wanted to do an adult daycare center, a house of worship, a residential retirement healthcare facility, or something like that, they would have to come back to the commission, and then there's a strict set of criteria or rules that have to be followed under what's called a special exception. So, once this zoning goes through, could they come back at some time and say, we would like to do a church, or we'd like to do an adult daycare? They could file an application to do what's called a special exception, and then they would have to follow the rules of the special exception. But typically, the rules when you're going to do a development like that, most of the time, the property is built that way to begin with, or it's able to meet those qualifications. Because when you do a church or an adult daycare or something like that, you have totally different parking requirements. It's a very, very different setup. So it's not like they're going to come in and put in homes and then just convert it to an ALF. So based on the straight zoning, no, they're not going to be able to just come in and do that. Could they do a special exception and ask for special permission and meet a whole different set of criteria? Yes, they could ask. Okay. All right?
Please.
And just to clarify my comment, I was trying to be fully transparent in that is an example of somebody who's inquired. So, not to say I want to do an ALF, but, those are the folks that have called, and I was, trying to give you guys what I could of, who's asked. So,
Okay.
and I appreciate that because I did misspeak, so.
and I wanted to make sure that, because you said no, but it was really kind of a, not really.
Yes.
And there are buffering requirements for whatever would go in there?
Yes, if they're looking to do multifamily, their compatibility, a lot of times compatibility can be achieved in more ways than just saying we're going to adopt a land use that's almost the exact same as what's there, or a rezone that's almost exactly as the rezone that's already there. Compatibility can be achieved through what are called performance measures. Those might be things like extra buffering, extra setbacks, extra vegetation, things that would mitigate any noise, like a wall, that kind of thing. So for these folks to do a multifamily development, they would have extended setbacks that would start at 35 feet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
More questions? Anybody else out there I didn't see?
My name is Belinda Hefner. I live at 1195 David Drive. I think where we're getting here is what I'm seeing is the traffic. That's the biggest issue. We're already take our lives when we try to get out on LPGA. Now you're going to put 200 more people here, and we're going to be fighting those traffics. Those roads, Vine, 10th, they're very small. Where is this traffic going to go? That's my concern.
I appreciate your concern.
It's a jam up. And now you want to make it worse. What's the solution?
Chairman, I can address that if you'd like.
Yes, please do, Brian.
One of the things that we require with a comprehensive plan amendment is we require them to address exactly the issue that you're talking about. It's an excellent question, because when you're going from a specific density and you go to a larger density, obviously there's going to be increases in traffic. So what we require them to do is, as the attorney alluded to earlier, they have to submit substantial competent evidence, which means that they have to submit data. They have to submit something that is based on some methodology. And so what they did is they went to LTG Engineering and Planning, which is a firm that they specialize in traffic engineering, traffic planning, and they use a variety of measures to be able to predict and calculate what traffic demands are going to be at a specific density given a specific use. So based on the land use that the county now has and what they could put there, they could have up to total trips per day 855.
Doubling what we have now. That's all the report, yeah.
Right now, they could do 800, it'd be 855 is the projected traffic. And then they have what are called PM peak hour rates, and that would be 83. Given the density of medium density residential, okay, it would be 1,099 total trips, which is it's an increase of 244 trips. And the PM peak hour trips go to 89, which is a difference of 6. So really, overall, you're looking at less than 250 additional trips per day. And in the PM peak hour, you're looking at, they estimate 6.
Well, I'm just simply saying, I wish the board would think about that. You want to take a trip down LPGA and try to make a left-hand turn, or in the morning, make a right-hand turn, and they're flying over the hill? We got an issue. And now you're going to, like I said, put more in there? It's a travel issue. I mean, I take my life every day because whoever designed that stoplight through didn't do it right.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, as I understand it, you were comparing worst against worst. The worst
Yes.
case of the Volusia versus the worst case if we had a 19 units per acre zoning.
Right,
That traffic.
that traffic is based on if they put 19 dwelling units
Right.
per net acre, but in actuality, it's going to be 12, so the difference is going to probably be even less than
Right.
250.
Well, it would seem that it would be less. It
Right.
would seem that it would be at least very close to similar.
I think the key thing that Brian pointed out is, and I do see it a lot, is you can't compare vacant land with what they're proposing, with the proposed comp plan and zoning change, because they're allowed to do something now.
Right.
So that's really, you're talking about the increment between what can they do now to what they're proposing. And that's, and I understand the issue, you know, the people say, oh, the roads are crowded. And I've been on roads that are crowded, but according to traffic engineers, they are not at their capacity yet.
Right.
So there's a difference between being crowded and from a legal perspective of what's at capacity. But that piece of property is vested with certain buildable rights.
Right.
So they could go build stuff right now under the county. So really what we're talking about is how much additional impact over what they can build right now, because that's the impact our land use and zoning are putting on that property.
Thank you. And what the numbers that Brian just gave you were the worst case numbers. They were developed at 19 units per acre rather than the 12 that are being proposed. So you're not looking at much. If there's a net increase at all, it's going to be very small. So, and it will be more traffic, but people reproduce, and there's more people. They have to live somewhere. My gosh, I agree with you. When I drive by, go out LPGA now and see all those apartments, I can't
Where do
believe
those
it.
people get the money to?
So I am sympathetic. I hate traffic. I hate it. I never go out. I live on the corner of Granada and Buena Vista, and I never go out and turn left onto US 1 from Granada Street. I just always go, either I come all the way up to 11th Street and turn, or 8th Street, or go to Flomich. I just don't do it because it's just, when I was 30 years old, 25 years old, I would have, but I don't do it anymore. I've gotten over it. All right, are there any more questions? All right, we're going to take this issue in two votes. Our first would be do I have a motion to recommend the land use change as the staff recommended?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All right, please call the question.
Motion to approve Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Tony Casada. Yes. Michael Meyer.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Now we're going to I'll entertain a motion to recommend approval for the zoning, for the R6 zoning as they have requested it and as the staff has recommended. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll motion to approve that.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
One
please.
more question. Mr. Walker, was there anything about that property that would have stopped them from going for an even higher density zoning?
They originally had requested higher zoning, but staff didn't feel that it was appropriate, given the fact that there's residential homes in the area. So there was some discussion with the applicant. Staff wasn't comfortable recommending a higher density, but the applicant talked to the applicant, got back to me and said that they agreed to 12 dwelling units an acre.
Okay, I'm looking ahead to see if they're going to come back in a year and say, oh, no, we need more, so.
Well, if they do.
If they do, that's fine, but it's
Right.
not likely to be favorable for me. Thank you.
Yeah, compatibility is what we would look at.
Right.
And that's
In
what
that
I
case,
was
we
looking
didn't
at.
think that more
As
than that.
one final
Right.
check, that's what I wanted to get from you.
Right.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Call the question, please.
Motion to approve Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Tony Casada. Yes. Michael Meyer.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody who would like to leave may go now. Thank you.
There's still two readings of the zoning ordinance in front of the commission. That's correct. So anybody that feels they didn't get their full say is welcome to go there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your vote is just like you did before. That's your recommendation, but the commission votes.
Makes the final decision. Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
I got one thing. All right, excuse me. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right, Mr. Walker, number 2, please.
Okay. This is a similar situation with regard to a property that is requesting to be annexed into the city. In this case, there are 2 ordinances before you. One is an ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from MXZ, which is mixed-use zone, to general commercial, and a rezone from I-1 light industrial to CC1, which is commercial corridor. And this is for a property that's approximately 1.36 acres in size, and it is known as 1652 North Nova Road. At its meeting on November 10th, 2020, the City Commission did vote unanimously at first reading to approve the requested annexation. It's anticipated that in the second meeting, commission meeting this month, the rezone, or in other words, the annexation will be finalized. So because it is coming into the city of Holly Hill, the property will need to receive the city's future land use and a city zoning as well. So again, they're going from MXC, mixed-use zone, to commercial corridor, and I-1 light industrial to CC1. The staff report does have project information, as well as a zoning and land use table showing the surrounding zonings on the property. And there's also a site analysis which looks at current water demands and future water demands should you approve the future land use amendment, wastewater, and other facility demands are also addressed under the site analysis. With regard to urban sprawl, again, Section 163.3177, 6A and 9B of Florida statutes requires that plan amendments be looked at to see if they encourage the proliferation of urban sprawl. And this amendment does not represent urban sprawl or leapfrog development, so that would not be something that would apply in this case. With regard to consistency with the comprehensive plan, again, you'll notice in the staff report there are various policies that are addressed, and staff finds that the requested small-scale land use amendment is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. With regard to appropriateness of the requested zoning category, the predominant zoning category that's applied along the west side of Nova Road, north and south of LPGA, is CC1. And the existing plumbing supply company and parking lot that abut the parcel that's under review are also zoned CC1. So according to policy 1.1.3 of the future land use element, the CC1 zoning designation is consistent with the general commercial land use classification. So the zoning that is requested is considered appropriate and does correspond or is consistent with the future land use that's requested. So based on that, staff recommends adoption of the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from MXZ mixed-use zone, Volusia County, to general commercial, Holly Hill, and also an ordinance enacting a rezone from I-1 light industrial, Volusia County, to CC1 commercial corridor, Holly Hill, for approximately 1.36 acres located on the west side of North Nova Road, approximately 400 feet north of LPGA Boulevard, and that is more specifically known as 1652 North Nova Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against it?
I just have some questions.
You can have a question. Come up, please. Tell us your name and where you're from, please.
Mark Durr, 1120 Mistletoe Drive. I abut to the west side of Clay Beasley's property.
Okay.
And before I go any further, I'm not for or against Clay. I don't want you to stop selling me products. So, just a couple quick questions I had. I made some inquiries to Mr. Walker, and I understand that it's an annexation. It's going from Volusia County to the city of Holly Hill. It's L1 currently, and you're looking for CC1, which is commercial corridor. And in the readings that I've seen so far, the commercial corridor implementation typically affected the Ridgewood area. And my understanding now is that you're trying to get the commercial corridor put through on LPGA/Nova Road. Or I should say Nova Road. My question to you is, with regard to the property, will there be an availability to have vehicles coming through the property onto Mistletoe Drive? I guess that's my first question.
I can answer that. No. I'm taking that wall, Mark, all the way across the back, and the whole reason, I can talk from here.
You should be at the microphone,
Wait.
Mr.
Yeah, I'm
Chairman.
not gonna be able to.
Probably want you to come up
No,
and
because you're not recorded, so please step up and speak into the
Clay
microphone.
Beasley. Okay. The whole reason that I did this is because of that wall that I put across the back. And the county wouldn't allow me to put it up without about a year of trying to get a permit. And of course, Holly Hill's so easy to get along with. Sure. They talked me into annexing, which, I hadn't thought about even annexing. I just wanted a nice wall across the back. There won't be no entry or exit to Mistletoe at all. In fact, I have that already currently on the north side of 1670. I do have a gate over there, and I have a culvert to cross. As you know, we've never used it. So currently what I'm trying to do
was owned by the county.
is to get all that material that I have at 1670 into the other side so I can have that fence company put the wall all the way across. There'll be no entry or no exit whatsoever. Does that answer everybody?
Dang, I thought you were going to give us some relief from that light where we could just cut through.
No.
Sure. You have access and a culvert down there.
The county.
I do.
You own the property.
I do.
You've chosen not to do that.
I do.
If somebody else purchases.
There won't be nobody else purchase that. That will never happen.
Okay.
It's simple.
Is that in your lifetime or?
No. In fact, when that 8-foot concrete wall goes up, if it'll make you comfortable, I'll pull the culvert out. I'm not going to go across it. Oh, okay. I just
No, I mean,
All right. You guys don't need to be negotiating that here.
just want to
Thank
make
you.
everybody happy.
Right, I understand. Then you have to come up to the microphone. Tell me
State
your
your
name,
name.
tell me your address.
I live at 1124, which
And-
is right behind his building.
And you have a name?
Robert Taylor.
Thank you.
I've owned the house for 40 years. I watched that whole corridor change.
Yeah?
The worst thing is the Walgreens on the end of the corner. They have a road coming out down my road, our road, and they don't go slow.
All right.
30 miles an hour. 30 miles an hour is the same speed limit on LPJ Boulevard from Nova Road to Ridgewood.
It is?
It's 30 miles, actually 35 miles an hour. It's 30 miles an hour on our road. That's fast. And the only thing I see is, I don't mind him having a wall. I don't mind him being a boat and everything. But the trailers that bring the cars and the trucks, they come down Mistletoe Drive. That's not a road, it's a drive. It's a small one road. It's not a whole road. And they bring down those trailers, and then the boats are at the end of the road down there, and they have to stop because the boats are on the road. The boats on the boats, you know where all the boat yard is on the end of Mistletoe Drive? They have more boats on Mistletoe Drive parked out there all day. And that's another problem. Because the trailers come down there, and they have to stop, and they park in front of his house for 30 minutes a day. Yeah, 30 minutes in front of his house. You know, why can't they come down Walker Street and turn on Nova Road? Oh, they've been doing that for years.
Excuse me.
For a lot of years. Okay, thank
I
you.
don't think that's our issue tonight.
I know that might be his problem, his problem.
We're not the traffic control board, I'm sorry.
I know.
They didn't do that when Daytona Santa Gravel was down there, did they?
Just address that.
All right, well, say your name and where you're from again. Mr. Beasley, tell us your
Mr.
name and
Beasley,
where you're
yeah,
from.
Clay Beasley, thank you. First off, I didn't know that they did that, because I don't ever really look back over there, to be honest with you. But that being said, the lease that I have with Daytona Toyota that has the cars on there, that brings those cars in, that's going to be up in about 6 months. And I'm not renewing the lease with them. I'm just going to put cars and stuff over there in storage, that's it. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not building, not developing, I'm not doing anything currently, unless something changes somewhere and I'll have to come back to you guys and ask for permission to do all of that. So all I'm going to do is just have single units, so there won't be nobody back over that way. So anyway.
All righty. Does the board have any questions? We'll take it in 2 steps. We'll do the future land use first. Do I have a motion to approve the future land use change?
Motion
as
to
staff
approve.
recommends? I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Call the question, please.
Motion to approve Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Tony Casada, Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. Now we'll address the zoning issue. So, do I have a motion to approve the zoning issue as they requested and as staff has recommended?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the question.
Motion to approve Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Tony Casada, Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. All right, motion carried. All righty. I didn't print the second page of the agenda, so I don't know what's next. I had it all printed. I printed 45 pages in color.
Old business, board staff communication.
Okay, all right.
Adjournment.
All right, thank you. Have we,
Staff.
order, please? Oh, man, he's taking that vice chairman.
Yeah, that vice chairman's
Pretty
going.
serious.
They just voted.
Little
I'm sorry.
power.
When you did, I thought that I thought
It's
you
okay.
Yeah,
that it
seemed
was
like the end of the
adjourned.
meeting to me, too. I was about ready to leave.
Yeah.
Not quite, not quite. Old business, do we have any old business to address? I don't know of any either. Any staff communications to address?
No, sir.
When's our next meeting, and do we have anything on the plans yet?
I, at this point, believe that there will be a meeting in February, but I'll have to let you know for sure.
And what's that date in February?
First Monday in
I
February.
know it's the
Check it right now.
What date is it, Eleni?
It is February 1st.
Wow.
Okay,
In the
then
mountain season?
you will have your first, you will have your first chairmanship, sitting in the chairman's chair that day, because I will be in Alabama killing deer. So, sorry. But that's the fact. I've already made my plans, paid my money.
Takes your chances.
That's it. All right, if we don't have anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Doesn't require a second. All in favor, say aye. And go.
What kind of hearing aids did you get?
Pardon me?
What kind of hearing aids did you get?
I got, they're, Livio.
Oh, boy.